Well, I did something really foolish and out of character yesterday. I ran. Not deliberately, but I needed to get from one side of the parking lot where I was to the other quickly, so I ran. And I had to stretch first. I hadn't run in a while, so I'm kind of gimpy today. So you see me sort of limping around the place. Don't be concerned, it'll pass. Where I was, where a number of you were, was at our 4th Saturday Market Mobile Food Event with the Montgomery County Food Bank, in which we moved 12,000 pounds of food. We had around 300 clients. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. It was a beautiful day. We had another group assisting us on a one-time only basis from Woodlands United Methodist Church because they were memorializing one of their members who was a board member at the food bank. He passed a couple of years ago, and every spring since and every spring into the future, they will work together as a group at one of these food events in his memory. So we got together and we stood in a big circle and did a big Methodist prayer for him and to open the thing and worked alongside these our neighbors. And it was just a wonderful time. And Richard Stromat,
yes,
who is not a spring chicken. I won't tell you his age because age is just a number, but I know the number. The first I saw of him there was a pair of ankles because he had climbed up on top of the stack of baked goods in order to take down something that needed to be taken down up there. That's the kind of energy this sort of thing puts in your steps. So I invite you to join us on Saturday, May the 30th, where we have our next event, Oak Ridge High School 9th grade campus in Conroe. We have a blast. You work for a couple hours, you get all sweaty, you come home all sore. But my God, when you see these people and the looks on their faces and the gratitude they have and the bonds that we create with our neighbors in the community by helping them out in this way, it is priceless. This is priceless. So, more on that as we go along here. But now we come to a meditation, which was given excellently at 9:30 by Shirley Sandwin. You know, we do that now at 9:30. The first half of the service is a guided meditation by one of our practitioners. Here you get a shorter version, and I invite you just to relax into this sweet day, this 1st of March of 2020, and you passed by, I'm pretty sure, on your way into this building, some azaleas that are just burst into bloom. Last week we saw this beginning to happen. This week they are full throttle azaleas. I don't know how they could get any bigger, but I suspect they will. For this is their time, and they waited all year for this, which is a long time in anybody's life, and especially in the world of azaleas. They waited a long time to present in this way. And that presentation, as you learned in botany so many years ago, has so many different purposes. It invites bees to come pollinate. It creates more azaleas going along. They have a chemical interaction with the atmosphere that's beneficial. And also they're really pretty. And they can lift your mood. You can be walking through this world in a kind of drab, dreary state of mind and spot something in nature that's so optimistic, that's so exuberant, that it just changes everything for you. And you want to sit down and you want to make a painting about azalea, write a poem about it, or a song. The world is full of these undiscovered treasures. Now we discover them. And we come to this place today to have an experience of just that. Discovery, awareness. Something within ourselves. It's been there the whole time. But now is its time. Now is its season to flourish. The creative mind in us. In this hour together, something powerful and transformative is occurring in and to and through you, assisted along by words, music, hugs, smiles, and the energy of the group. I invite you to be with your thoughts, your feelings, your sweet inner process, whatever that may be, as we rest together for a few moments in the beauty of this music. Universal love enfolds me, universal wisdom inspires me, universal spirit enlightens me, universal power encircles me. I am one and all is one. I invite you now to open yourself to the miracle working higher power and symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, letting my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it. It is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge.
I acknowledge.
Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I become ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words, I surrender.
I surrender.
Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive.
I forgive.
Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose.
I choose.
I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing this idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled, and gratefully speak these words, I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me who's touched my life in powerful, wonderful ways. This could be a friend, a family member, a teacher of mine. It's someone who's not physically present with me in this room this morning, so I greet this being of light and consciousness, turning toward that face I see in my mind's eye, saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes to the world around me, turn joyfully to these folks here and say to each of them, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Notice an interesting thing too about these lights up here. It's a metaphor, Kelly, it's all a metaphor. When light bulbs burn out, they usually burn out. You know, they're on and they're not. These grow dim slowly. So they mess with you. And I'm like peering at my notes, and then I blame Jeffrey, and no, it's just the slowly diminishing batteries in the lights. But there is a power within us, which does not diminish. And that's what we're talking about this month. It's the creative process. There's a great book. It's a little, what was the word you used, Jim, about the book you were talking? Dry. It's a little dry, but bear with it, called The Creative Process in the Individual by Thomas Troller. And I'm going to get into that in the weeks to come. Today is kind of setting the table for that, about the creative process of you, because it's a time of creation. So let's use March for creativity. Right? How do we create? Where do we begin? when we create? Well, on one level, we've always been creating something. Conscious thought dropped into subconscious medium or soil eventuates in something. And it did this long before we knew it. Long before we read our first metaphysical book or taken a class, we've been creating something. What we learn in the science of mind is not what to do going forward, it's what we've always done. And how to use that, and how to cooperate with that. We cooperate with the creative process. We don't start the creative process, invent the creative process, or snatch the creative process away from anybody else. We cooperate with it. It's unfolding beautifully through us all the time. But when I say creative process, what you may hear is how to be an obviously creative person. Like an artist, or a musician, or a writer, or a sculptor, or a person who invents things, or a person who discovers things, or who recombines things in some new form for the benefit of all. How do you become an overtly creative person? Where do you begin with this? And that's what today is about. Well, here's where I think you begin. First thing is you look at what we talked about last month in terms of relationships. 4 stages of relationship. The first being with spirit, the second being with ourselves, the third being with the people that we love who are really close to us, and the fourth being with everybody and everything else. The relationship that we have with our source, we describe that. The relationship we have with the people closest to us and with ourselves and with our own process, we describe that. This is what the artist does. You want to be an authentic creative person, not just a creative person who gets paid for it, not just a creative person who the world acknowledges, but you want to be an authentic creative person. And this is what authentic creative people do. They describe their own process. You've heard the expression, write what you know. If you set out to be a writer, let's say you think you have a booking or a set of stories. So what am I going to write? I can write about anything. You say, write what you know. So where have you been? What have you done? And how did you feel about it? This is what you write about, and you're being authentic there. Now, you're going to take liberties with it, bring other characters in. You're going to mix and match some stories and all. But it's authentically going to be your feeling about things that really communicates with the reader. The artist authentically communicates what she sees in the world and within her own process and within her own pain. And I was telling the group at 9:30 that some of the most powerful artistic, musical, and literary contributions on the planet are filled with pain and suffering. Yesterday at the food event, oh, there it is again, Tony Martinez, who brought the music, had a present. I forgot yours, Jeffrey. It's over in my office still. I'll get it to you after. Don't leave before I get it to you. He comes up to me, he says, I got a present for you and a present for Jeffrey. And he palms this thing into my hand. It's a thumb drive. It's like this really heavy, massive thumb drive, flash drive, you know. And it's got, he said, I think 4 terabytes of music. Guy's a DJ, 4 my hard drive is 2. 4. Gee whiz. I opened the thing last night, and it's folder after folder after folder. He's been collecting music digitally since the start of digital music. And he is a professional DJ. And when we first met, one of the first conversations we had, because he grew up, Tony, are you here before I talk about you? Okay. He lives in Katy, so we don't see him every Sunday. It's a drive, you know. He grew up in Spanish Harlem, which was across Morningside Park from where I grew up. So one of the first conversations we had when we met was about Tito Puente. Tito Puente's music, you know. And when the Buena Vista Social Club was Cubana, you know, when that came out, we talked about all those musicians. So he's got all this on here. He's got McCoy Tyner, he's got jazz folders, all this sort of stuff. Well, I'm telling you this is all of this music. I don't know what percentage or how many lifetimes it's going to take me to listen to all of it. But a significant percentage of it is dark and painful. It's laments of the soul. Why make music about that? Why would anybody become that? Two reasons. One was they had to. They had to offload it in some way. The other reason, the cosmic reason for it, is it helps somebody. Somebody's going to say, you might listen to a sad song and it won't cheer you up. You might listen to a sad song and say there is justification for my sadness. Somebody else has been through the same thing. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. When people come into metaphysics, one of the first things they typically say after they look around and talk to some people is, I'm not crazy after all, man, for thinking these things that I did, for believing that there's a non-physical reality behind the physical. So some of the stuff that gets described is really painful. Great literature, the same thing. But it's authentic. It's coming from where people actually are. And it can help you. Now here's where you come in and I come in. We have a story. You have a story that nobody else has. You walked a path no one else has walked. Not only that, they could not walk it because it's not theirs to walk. No one else could walk your path. What would happen if they tried? They'd be diverted onto another path. Maybe they started out on your path and they peeled off on some other path because it wasn't their path, your path. They had something else calling to them. Your path is for your steps alone. As the song says, it's on Tony's thumb drive. This path is for your steps alone. No one else could do what you do. You know how you can tell? They'd be here instead. But instead, you're here. You know you're here. You know you have self-consciousness. You know you exist in space and time. You know that your word has power and it reverberates throughout creation. You've seen this happen. You have a powerful creative gift to give. Where do you start with it? In the relationship with Spirit, you have all the information of Spirit, you have all of the time, all of the ancestry of Spirit back of you in being fully who you are. In your relationship with yourself, you have your journey and just as important, maybe more important, your interpretation of your journey up to this point back of you. And you have love around you. If you feel alone and unloved at any time, they're simply people who are, they seem to be at a distance, but they're there. And there are azaleas, and there are songbirds. Did you hear the song? Last night at sunset in particular, the songbirds. We're on several migratory routes here, and the songbirds were like, they got together and they just let loose because it was March, and they could, you know? And later in the year, when we get into the fabled wet season, possibly as early as Wednesday, but we get into you'll hear the bullfrogs. You've heard the bullfrogs, right? And they go nuts. Now, how can you not feel at least accompanied, if not supported, by life when you hear the bullfrogs and the songbirds and you see these aliens and so on? You might say, well, I want more than that. Well, there is more than that. There are dogs and cats and fish, and there are people. And there are people everywhere wanting to be your friend. And there are people everywhere, friends you haven't met yet, and so on. So you describe your relationship with them. And some of these people need things. Some of them are in pretty sorrowful states, and they'll come to you for stuff, and you describe that. And some of these people have what you need, and you'll describe that. This is how we create our art. And then you pour it forth. Now, in what form? In what genre do you want to work? A clue to that is, where do you notice patterns the most? What engages you the most? Is it music? Do you hear the intervals between notes? Do you hear the silence? You know what makes music? Silence, as well as sound. It's a balance between the two. If it were constant, unbroken sound, there's a word for that. It's called noise, you know. But instead, each note is punctuated by a rest. Each chord is created of intervals and so on. Do you notice that? Do you see the math kind of flowing out of the piano? Because all music is mathematical. Do you watch Brian's fingers as they run up and down the fretboard on the guitar, and you look at that and you see how is that a chord, a major chord or a seventh, or you go there, does your mind go there? Well, that's a clue, right? But maybe that does nothing for you. There's a line in Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, you don't care for music, do you? Well, all right, so maybe it's art. Do you notice patterns in display? Do you notice the world breaking itself up into little bitty mosaic tiles? I was telling this at 9:30, and I stand here looking at these chairs. More of them are empty at 9:30 than are now. And I looked at them and they form kind of a mosaic pattern. Isn't it interesting? And there's perspective and there's shadowing and so forth. Is that how your mind works? Is that where you go? Well, that's a clue. Do you notice shapes and forms and textures of things? There you are. Or do you work mostly in words? Do you look for the perfect description of a thing? Perfect way to say a thing. Every time you say something, when you finish, you think of a better way to say it, a sharper way to say it, a more succinct and precise way to say it the next time. Well, then that's where you go. And these are just three of countless possible examples. Do you notice machinery, mechanics, physics, engineering, architecture? Do you notice how things hold together? Do you notice? I don't know how old I was when I read about stress. As eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, meaning good stress, which is the opposite of distress. Distress, we know what that means, and we think stress. Well, I don't want stress in my life. No more stress in my life. If you had no stress in your life, you'd look like you'd lay flat on the floor. There'd be nothing. You couldn't move. The stress is what holds the body together. Stress is what holds the building up. There's a positive kind of stress. Do you look at that? Do you look at joists and columns and stuff and figure out how all of this fits together? Are you constantly improving things in your mind? Do you get in your car or operate the toaster or the coffee pot or whatever, and you look at it and you think, I could do better. If only it had a this. If only it had a that. Somebody came up with the idea for doorbells with cameras in them. That's a brilliant idea. For years we had the little fisheye peephole thing you look at through. Now it's got cameras and all of that. You can probably get carried away with it, get all paranoid and weird, or, it's just another thing, right? Everybody thought of stuff at some point before anybody else did, and there it is. A computer used to fill a room this size nearly, and they took it down to, 4T music. Are you kidding me? An inch and a half? How do you do this? Somebody saw that. I told you a story years ago, and it's a good story again to tell about, I went to I think it was a Rotary Club breakfast I was invited to by a Rotarian in the Woodlands some years ago, where two guys gave a presentation. Two guys in suits gave a presentation, and they had, this is before PowerPoint, but they had big easels with stuff on them, and they were showing us the Woodlands Waterway, Market Street and the Woodlands Waterway, that was just in the first conceptual stages. And they were pitching this to the room of business leaders and what have you, who to get behind it and invest and do what was needed and so on. And one of the guys said, years from now, a couple of people will be walking along this waterway, and one will turn to the other and say, wouldn't it be amazing if the folks who thought this up could see it? And the other will respond, they did see it. That's why it's here. They did see it. So I made my way through the group to meet these two, and they were exiting out a door, and I didn't connect because I got what I needed, but I wanted to pin them down on, y'all in metaphysics?
Yeah.
Y'all read Trover? Because they did see it. That's why it's here. So somebody sees it before it's there, and that's the thing, and that's you. And you're here to see it. And you don't have to worry that much about what it is exactly you're going to have to see, because it wants you as badly as you want it. So it's making its way to you. All you have to maybe move out of the way are some judgments. Some that were placed on you and some that you made yourself. The ones that were placed on you were you're not very artistic, are you? You're not very good at this, are you? You can't really carry a tune in a bucket, can you? That sort of thing that stings. And you hear that as a kid, you know, and you carry it with you. And years later, you won't open your mouth to sing because somebody one time said, I believe that art, as taught in schools, should be graded on one principle. Did the student show up for class? Are you present? And if you're present, you did your work. I realize there are certain other considerations. You are trying to teach something. You want people to listen and follow through. But still, most of the great artists you and I know drew outside the lines from day one. Went way off script. Teachers were horrified. How could you do this? Kids were sitting in class. When I was in school, we had nuns. They would be the nun teaching something very well. They were excellent teachers and putting something on the board. And a kid, maybe me, would be looking out the window. And a hand would slam down on your desk. Pay attention. If it were me looking out the window, I was thinking about lunch. But it could have been a kid looking out the window into the heart of the universe and into how the atom works. And into the structure of nature, the mysteries of nature, who had to be brought back from that big picture to how to diagram this sentence or finish this formula. We've been taught that we don't have what it takes, and there's a special elite group of people called the artistes, called those who have the gift and who are rushed off into the best schools and they do this fine thing. That's baloney. That's elitist thinking, and it's wrong. Every one of us has this special gift, and if you believe Marianne Williamson's take on it, which is pretty, it'll jerk the slack out of you, what she has to say about it. She says, you know what it is, and it scares the daylights out of you. You know what your gift is. And we're like, no. We get busy and we do other stuff and putter around because we really don't want to have to face this thing because it takes everything we've got. We will be exposed. We will be vulnerable. We will be hung out to dry by the creative process. Well, it can be terrifying, but more terrifying is the resistance to it. And all the inventions and all of the blather that goes on in our mind that keeps us from it. Because once the thing kicks in, and this is where I'll kind of bring it home for you, I think, is muscle memory, okay? I've never had this conversation with Brian, but I had it one time with Troy McConnell. You know, Troy's a wonderful musician, fine guitarist and stuff. He's up here on stage, and I mess with the guitar. I keep one by my chair at home, and I pluck at it, and stuff. But I'm not serious about it, like I am about other things. Or Jim Gibson, my God, what a guitarist Jim is. Well, it happened to be Troy the one I asked, and he was making bar chords and stuff, sitting here warming up for something. And I said, how do you do that? Because it hurts. It hurts my hand to make bar chords. And it's like, how do you do that? And he's not looking at the fretboard. He's just, no. And he's making all, how do you I'm whining at him. How do you do this? This is muscle memory. Fine violinist in the house, Bill Burge. Muscle memory, right? It starts out where at first you don't know what you're doing or what this is, and it's how does it, but then you practice repetition, and it becomes muscle memory, and now you have the basis on which to build. So where do you begin the creative process? You begin it today. That's where. You begin it right now, today. No more waiting, no more hesitating. You know what it is. Pick up the guitar, pick up the pen, pick up the paintbrush, pick it up and do something with it, and today it begins. And you might say, well, I know, but by the time I get really good at this, I'll be real old. Well, if you didn't do it, you'd be real old and you wouldn't have done it. You ever hear of Grandma Moses? I won't tell you this story, but look her up. How she walked in, I think it was a gas station in upstate New York, and saw something behind the register, saw a painting behind the register. And I think, I may be wrong here, so those of you who fact check, be generous, be nice, but because my heart's in the right place. I believe what happened was she walked in and she saw a piece of art in this gas station, and she huffed indignantly and said, I could do something like that. And dang if she didn't. And that's why we've heard of her. Begin today to do the thing, and you build the muscle memory. This applies to everything. How can I do spiritual mind treatment? How can I meditate? How can I be an effective teacher of metaphysics? Or how can I, whatever it is. Begin today, and you develop the habit. You got in a car and drove here today, didn't you? And if you didn't, the person you were with did. I doubt you came on foot. Few do on Sundays. We used to have a guy who rode a bike. Then they widened the road and got a little perilous for him. But you got here in a car. When I got in my car this morning, I knew how to start it. I didn't have to figure it out. I knew my feet worked the pedals, my hands worked the wheel. I knew where to look and what to do and stuff. And it's muscle memory. It's how it is. That way, when I'm driving, I don't have to think about driving. I can think about other things. I can think about the stuff that I'm going to say to you on the way here. I can think about this line that I want to share with you that I'm going to give you all month long from the works of Don DeLillo, who is a novelist. And he says, the world is filled with abandoned meanings. I want you to think about that. The world is filled with abandoned meanings. The world is filled with projects that people have said, I give up, and they walk off from. And there sits the easel with the canvas on it, awaiting you. There sits the unfinished symphony, awaiting you. There sits the meaning for you to pick up and run with. There sits the thing and the information, the threads to pull to have this all come apart for you, and the scales to fall from your eyes. They're all around you. I was looking for an example of this to give you. And on the way here, I passed by a sign on Spring Stubner Road, and it said, this property for sale, call Mac Neff. M-A-C-K, last name N-E-F-F. Call Mac Neff. I glanced at it. It didn't register with me at all until about a block later, when I find myself singing, oh, the shark with his teeth, and he leaps them pearly white. Bobby Darin, Mac the Knife, Mac Neff, Mac the Knife. All of a sudden, sing Bobby. That reminds me, you know what I got in my briefcase? I got a thumb drive for Jeffrey with 14 music on it. And suddenly the whole thing made sense. And it was like I saw that sign so that I could be reminded of a song that would remind me of a thing that I could throw into the talk and also be useful for Jeffrey. The world is filled with abandoned meanings. And I'm half inclined to completely creep out Mr. Neff at his real estate office tomorrow and call him. And tell him about this. And he might go all linear on me and say, so are you going to buy the property? And I'll be like, what property? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, Mac, do you know the world is filled with abandoned meanings? When you tell somebody that, they never forget it. If you were to run up to a total stranger on the street and say, I know what you've come here to do, and then run off. Will they forget that? No. Consider yourself run up to by me. Consider yourself presented with that idea. You know what you came here to do. Now, off we go into muscle memory. Let's know together there is one life, one power, one presence. It's all one, and it's all many from the one. You and I are of the many. We look around and we see a multitude of us. This planet. We go into memory and we see a vast, vast multitude of ancestors. And we think of generations to come, innumerable beings here. But what all share is this one life. In this one life, there is a specific set of things most appeal to you, that will open out into other things and things beyond those. In this entry point today, called the 1st of March, 2020, a specific set of these possibilities has presented itself. Otherwise, you would not have heard that it was ready for you. This information would not have come to you if it were not to be employed. And it would not have come to you today if it were not to be employed in this moment, right now. So look around, look within. What are the patterns that emerge? What is the song you have to sing? What is the story you have to tell? Let it pour forth from your soul and be assured that it will be received by someone somewhere, possibly lots and lots of people. Let the story revise itself as it goes along. Let the song rewrite itself. Let it have endless verses to it. For nothing is ever finished. But neither need it be abandoned. And if you've ever been told by anyone anywhere, out of their pain, that you were not enough, that you did not have what it took, you were lacking in critical information, skill sets, or anything else, do not blame them, but neither take their word. Instead, smile and turn back to what it was you were doing with a rekindled passion and a refocused intensity of knowing that the one life of Spirit is pouring itself into indescribable beauty through your hands, your mind. For this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere we turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you this morning for being here. Every single person in this group right here, right now, is absolutely necessary to this whole experience today. I realize that. And what I know, that in this moment, right here, as we're joined with our hands together, our hearts, and our loveliness that I just saw coming, beaming at me from someone I hadn't seen in a while. It's been happening a lot lately. I love it that we are feeling this connection of this authentic creative power. It's all around us. We cannot escape it. We wouldn't want to when we realize that it is right here. It comes through this beautiful music here today at Creative Life, through every word spoken, through everything that's awakened within us by something we've heard. If it was just one note, it has resonated. I intend that this day we feel that presence of the creative power within ourselves as we move from this space. And it is affirmed in what shows up. And it is strengthened, as Jesse said. The brain remembers. It's built up to just have this experience over and over, that we are powerful beings of this creative power of love. I'm grateful to know it and affirm it is so. And as we gather from this experience into the next one, wherever that may be, it goes with us. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for this day. And so it is.
So it is.
Say it with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my
I feel it
body.
in my mind.
I feel it in my
I feel it
mind.
in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I
I
am.
choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
I love it.
And I love it. And so it is.